There are 4 places on Earth where the ground itself is the enemy, not haunted by ghosts, not guarded by soldiers, guarded by something you cannot see, cannot smell, and cannot outrun. In one of them, an entire city was evacuated in under 3 hours and never reoccupied again. In another, the full scale of the danger remained hidden for decades. One was erased so completely that its native people are still fighting, decades later, to go home. And one was used 456 times. While communities beyond the test ground lived beneath fallout they were never fully told about. These are not natural disasters. They are man-made scars, places where human ambition reached too far, too fast, and the planet sent the bill. Today, we are stepping into the 4 most radioactive secrets on Earth. Welcome back to Mind Marvel Wonder. If forbidden places, buried truths, and the corners of the map they don't want you to see are your thing, hit subscribe. Because this channel exists for exactly one reason: to take you where you're not supposed to go. Let's begin where the modern nuclear age first showed its true face. April 26, 1986. Reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant explodes during a late-night safety test gone catastrophically wrong. The blast is so powerful, it blows the 1,000-ton steel lid clean off the reactor core. And yet, the city of Pripyat, home to nearly 50,000 people, is not evacuated for another 36 hours. Soviet officials know within hours that this is the worst nuclear accident in history. The public does not. Children go to school, families have picnics, a wedding is held outdoors. All while an invisible plume of radioactive fallout drifts silently over their heads. When the evacuation order finally comes, residents are told to pack for 3 days. They are never allowed back. Today, Pripyat stands frozen in 1986. A Ferris wheel that never opened for its planned May Day debut. Classrooms with gas masks still scattered across the floor. Apartment buildings swallowed by forest. The exclusion zone stretches over 1,000 square miles of Ukraine and Belarus, a no-man's land larger than the country of Luxembourg. Some of the most contaminated areas could remain unsafe for human settlement for thousands of years, long after the buildings of Pripyat have disappeared. And yet, nature had other plans. Wolves, lynx, and wild horses now roam Pripyat's empty streets in numbers higher than before the disaster. Radiation drove humans out. It did not drive out life. Even stranger, a small population of self-settlers, mostly elderly Ukrainians, illegally returned to their villages inside the zone within months of the evacuation. And some are still there today, farming soil that regulators call unsafe. In 2022, Russian troops occupied the exclusion zone during the invasion of Ukraine, some digging trenches in the contaminated red forest and disturbing ground that had remained radioactive for decades. Nearly 40 years later, Chernobyl is still not over. It is simply waiting. March 11th, 2011. A magnitude 9.0 earthquake, the most powerful ever recorded in Japan, triggers a tsunami over 40 feet high. The wave overwhelms the seawalls at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, flooding the emergency generators that were supposed to keep the reactors cool. Within days, 3 reactor cores melt down. Hydrogen explosions tear through the containment buildings, broadcast live to the entire world. It becomes only the second disaster in history after Chernobyl. to be rated a level 7 on the International Nuclear Event Scale, the highest severity possible. Over 150,000 people are evacuated. Entire towns, Futaba, Aokuma, Nami, are abandoned overnight. What makes Fukushima different is what happens after the cameras leave. More than a decade later, a difficult-to-return zone still exists. Pockets of land considered too contaminated for anyone to legally re-enter. Inside, time capsules of March 2011 remain. Convenience stores with expired stock still on the shelves. A pachinko parlor frozen mid-game. Cars with 2011 registration stickers slowly being reclaimed by weeds. In 2023, Japan began releasing over 1 million tons of treated radioactive wastewater from the plant into the Pacific Ocean. A decision that triggered protests from fishing communities and diplomatic backlash from neighboring countries. Decommissioning the plant fully is expected to take until at least 2051, a 40-year cleanup for 30 minutes of catastrophic failure. Fukushima proves something unsettling. Even the most technologically advanced nation on Earth could not fully control what it built. Long before Chernobyl or Fukushima, there was Bikini Atoll, a ring of pristine coral islands in the Pacific that the United States turned into ground zero. Between 1946 and 1958, the US military detonated 23 nuclear weapons on and above this tiny atoll, including Castle Bravo, a hydrogen bomb roughly 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Before the first test, the US Navy relocated the entire native population, just 167 people, promising them it was for the good of mankind and that they would return home soon. They are still waiting. Castle Bravo's fallout was so badly miscalculated that it contaminated inhabited islands hundreds of miles away, and even irradiated a Japanese fishing boat, killing one crew member and igniting international outrage. Today, Bikini Atoll's radiation levels have dropped enough for brief visits. But scientists still consider the soil too contaminated to safely grow food. Cesium-137 lingers in the ground, absorbed by coconut trees and passed up the food chain. The atoll's lonely beauty is part of what makes it so unsettling. Turquoise water, white sand, swaying palms, and beneath it all, an invisible legacy of the most powerful weapons ever built. In 2010, Bikini Atoll's nuclear test site was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a rare case of humanity preserving the physical evidence of its own destructive power. The Bikinian people, now numbering in the thousands and scattered across other islands, have never been able to permanently return home. August 29, 1949. On a remote steppe in Soviet Kazakhstan, the USSR detonates its first atomic bomb at a secret testing ground known as the Semipalatinsk polygon. Over the next 40 years, the Soviet Union conducts 456 nuclear tests here, 116 in the atmosphere and 340 underground. The site covers roughly 18,500 square kilometers. But radioactive fallout does not respect the boundary drawn around a test range. Communities beyond the polygon live through repeated explosions and drifting fallout, while the true scale of the danger remains hidden behind Soviet secrecy. Scientists study the effects of radiation on nearby populations. Much of what they learn remains classified for decades. The people living there are left in the dark. Then there is Atomic Lake, a crater blasted into the landscape by a Soviet nuclear explosion in 1965, now filled with water and surrounded by the legacy of the tests. Across the polygon, abandoned bunkers, concrete observation towers, tunnels, and scarred ground remain. The machinery of a nuclear laboratory spread across the steppe. Testing finally ends in 1989. The site is officially closed in 1991. As Kazakhstan begins confronting a radioactive inheritance it never asked for. Today, Kazakhstan maintains a nuclear safety zone around contaminated areas and continues radiation monitoring across the former test site. Semipalatinsk was not one accident. It was a 40-year experiment, repeated 456 times, and the land is still carrying the evidence. 4 pieces, 4 decades, 1 shared lesson. Chernobyl taught the world what happens when secrecy outlives the emergency. Fukushima proved that even the best engineering bows to nature. Bikini Atoll showed how easily a paradise can become a sacrifice. And Semipalatinsk showed what happens when secrecy turns an entire landscape into a laboratory. Each one is still here, still radioactive, still waiting for us to either learn or repeat. If this journey into humanity's most dangerous ground kept you watching till the end, you know what to do. Subscribe and join us next week as we step into another place the world tried to forget. Until then, stay curious. Some doors are locked for a reason.